Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible. Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today's guest is Amy Jovita Murray. Am I saying it correctly?
Yes, you did. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, she's a fertility coach and educator, a holistic reproductive health practitioner, wife, bilingual English, German, mama of two little girls, ages 4 and 1, recovering coffee-cholic and dark chocolate lover. And she also grew up in a single parent household. She's joining us from La Plata. Is it Montana?
Missouri.
Missouri. Welcome. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really am enjoying this opportunity.
Yeah. So please share with us in your own words who you are.
Yeah. So I feel like my story is going to encompass like two of the points that we wanted to talk about today. So yes, I think I'll share. Sorry. So I what led me where I'm is that what we're talking about? So basically that story is I was 13 and I was put on the pill because I was struggling with acne. And I was told by my doctors that the pill tricked my body into thinking I was pregnant. So that was the story that I believed from a young age on. And that's why I wanted to go on the pill to fix my acne. And I came off of the pill at 22 because I had this hunch that the pill wasn't that great for me. I still didn't know how it worked, still thought I was pretending to be pregnant. And so I came off the pill. I'm like, well, now what do I do for birth control? Because I also had this, like, I want to get pregnant in like 5 to 10 years. That timeline ended up shortening quite a bit. But I was like, now what do I do for birth control? So I found the Fertility Awareness method for birth control through a couple of online blogs. And so I'm like, yeah, this is great. I can track my cervical mucus, my basal body temperature, and I can avoid pregnancy. And then when we're ready to get pregnant, I know exactly what to do. And so that's what I did. Long story short, I took a group program to get better at like charting my cycles. I was like, I need to do what you do. So the lady was like, well, I learned this here. So I took an educator program, and that's how I became a holistic reproductive health practitioner. And then after my 2 pregnancies and struggling a little bit with secondary infertility, that's where I was like, okay, I'm going to shift my focus on like the 3 topics. So the 3 areas of fertility awareness that I typically talk about are avoiding pregnancy, getting pregnant, and balancing your hormones. And so while I'm like very passionate still, and I think that's mostly what we're going to talk about today, about the hormone aspect, balancing hormones and avoiding pregnancy, especially with young girls, I like the women that I primarily serve are women who are trying to conceive. So that is a little shift that I've recently made. So yeah, I'll let you take it from here.
That's incredible, but I'm also was so shocked to hear from you when we met previously that they advise 13-year-old girls to go on a pill to cure their acne. How crazy is that?
And it's not just acne. It is like literally, if you go to your gynecologist for any menstrual cycle related or unrelated issue as a woman, you are given the pill. You have heavy periods, go on the pill. And it's like, P.S. public service announcement, when you first get your period, it is like when you start menstruating, which is called menarche or menarche, your cycles are going to be irregular. So here are all these 12, 13, 14-year-old girls being put on the pill to quote unquote regulate their cycles, or have lots to say about. Their cycles need time to regulate. It's a communication between the brain and the ovaries that the body needs to learn. It's like, I mean, riding a bike, you can't just like get on your bike and go. Like, you have to learn. So it's like a communication they need to learn. And so here are all these young teenagers who are being put on the pill to quote unquote regulate their cycle so that they know when their period is coming and XYZ. But then again, like also acne, PMS symptoms, heavy periods, anything, migraines.
Yeah.
Ironically, some women experience migraines as a side effect of hormonal birth control. But if you are experiencing migraines like without hormonal birth control, they recommend you go on hormonal birth control. So that is that rant.
It's unbelievable, and then it causes what they don't tell you probably, how it causes you to have infertility problems later on in life. You don't think about it when you're 13, but guess what? When you want to start a family and suddenly you find out like stuff is not working, like what's going on, and you never trace it back to the fact that it was a pill. So, I love that you bring it in and you educating people on kind of awareness on like what would you say is a better way for acne?
Definitely nutrition plays a huge role. I see you smiling. There was actually one person who planted that seed, but it didn't grow until like 20 or 10 years later. So when I was 13, I was struggling with cystic acne, and I went to is it a cosmetologist? I don't even know the correct English term for it, but anyway, she like treated my face and like squeezed out the pimples and whatever in a way that they wouldn't like leave scars and things like that. So she was the one who told me, well, like, are you eating a lot of sugar? Because like sometimes like that can have something to do with it. I'm like, nah, I have an appointment next week at my gynecologist. I'm gonna go out on the pill. Thank you very much.
Oh my God.
That was my mindset, and I didn't know any better. My mom didn't know any better. And so when I'm working with clients now, it's like the nutrition is the first thing that we look at. And like what everybody thinks is healthy isn't like necessarily like healthy in my opinion. And like scientific, like I base a lot of my nutrition advice around Lily Nichols. So if you put links in the show notes, her work is great for nutrition around a healthy menstrual cycle. And so that's a lot of my nutrition advice. And she focuses on getting enough protein, incorporating animal foods, and creating or having like a stable blood sugar. And if I had done those things as a teenager, because I developed an eating disorder during that time too. So I was binge eating pretty much. And like, of course I was having acne and like other hormone issues because my blood sugar was like up and down. And then the emotional aspect around that is, definitely had something to do with it. And then so like where nutrition, like where food doesn't get us far enough, then basically I recommend supplements. So I'm sure a little bit of vitamin D and zinc would have done wonders for me at 13. But again, not something that I was aware of back then.
Definitely. And it's nutrition and sleep and probably how much time we spend on gadgets and how early do we go to sleep and the stress of life and stuff. That would contribute to acne a lot. And also the fact that acne could be normal when you just
that's the first thing I was going to say, like
because your body is now breaking and learning how to be this teenager body. So a lot of hormones and sometimes they appear on your face. But you're so right about sugar. Cutting sugar out, I think, is the number one thing that should be recommended as a first thing before any pills.
Before going on the birth control pill.
That's like, oh my God. And I think the education of I call it should be more towards it and to advocate and to tell teenagers, what to do instead of just going to gynecologists and doing the pill. Because we always want quick solutions. We want something like that, like instant gratification. But we don't look at the long-term effects of doing something or not doing something and how it's going to affect us down the line. What will happen if we were to take this action? We very short-sighted.
Yeah. The last thing that I wanted to share about the pill. So just, doing my public service announcement duty here. I just want to share like real quick how the pill actually works. And I wanted to speak to your point of like potential fertility issues down the line as well, because it's going to tie in. So what the pill actually does, and I feel like if we informed young women and teenagers, like if we gave them all the information, maybe they wouldn't take the pill at all, or maybe just not as long, or maybe they would be fine with that knowledge. So how the pill works is it suppresses your body's natural hormones. So like during a normal menstrual cycle, we have a balance of estrogen and progesterone that is like an interplay. And like I said, as you transition into the teenage years, like your body learns the communication, brain and ovaries, how do we ovulate, how do we get this thing rolling. And so the pill suppresses these hormones. So if you measure, and instead it gives you synthetic estrogen and progesterone, or only synthetic progesterone, depending on the type of hormonal birth control you're on. And if you took the hormone levels, the natural hormone levels of a woman on the pill or a girl on the pill, it would mimic the hormonal profile of a woman in her postmenopausal years. So if you were to tell a 13-year-old girl, okay, here's this pill, it might be a quick solution for your acne right now, but this is what it does to your hormones, and your hormones are going to be like a 60-year-old woman's like natural hormones. That's different information than telling her, oh, your body thinks it's pregnant and that's a good thing, and complete misinformation. And how that ties into potential fertility issues down the road. So the hormonal birth control does cause a temporary delay in the return of fertility. And so that's very nicely worded for, you might have a harder time getting pregnant when you come off of hormonal birth control. It's such a hard word to say. So some women, they come off the pill and they get pregnant right away. But some women get off the pill and it takes them 10 years to get pregnant. So that was maybe an exaggeration, but we are, again, instant gratification. If we take the pill for 20 years, and it's not uncommon for me to talk to somebody, maybe they went on the pill when they were 15 and now they're 35 and they're ready to start their family. So they've been on the pill for 20 years, and they've maybe had like this like brain ovary connection that I was talking about earlier, had like maybe 2 or 3 years or 4 years to like get talking, and then it was shut down for 20 years, and now like you're coming off the pill and your body has to relearn this connection. So yes, it's going to take some time for that to happen. There are things that we can do to speed up that process: nutrition, sleep, like what we were just talking about. But yeah, it does have an impact on fertility as well.
Thank you. And I think it's important, the work you're doing and educating others and kind of doing the public announcements, because we need to speak. I never heard of it until I spoke with you, and I'm 44. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about you growing up in a single parent household. How was it for you? What were some of the things you wish you had, or maybe everything was great?
Yes.
Share with us.
So the story there is, so my parents were actually never together. My mom was told she couldn't get pregnant when she was 35 years old, that she was too old to get pregnant, basically. And lo and behold, she had me when she was 42. And there is a larger age difference between my mom and my dad. My dad is actually quite a bit younger than my mom. And so they had this understanding that my dad was going to be in my life. But like, I didn't know that, which I'm going to get to later. And so it was always understood that like, as soon as I asked, my mom would tell me. And like my dad was very young at the time, so he was like doing his own thing. And my mom, growing up in the hippie generation, didn't feel like tying anybody down and like, no, you have to, like, this is your life now. And so that's how it was. And my dad was like a friend of the family. Like, we do cool things together. Like he, so I have a stepbrother too, who was 3 years younger than me. So like we'd go like to the fun, like adventure parks and things like that. And then I distinctly remember being in first grade and like making friends for the first time, like, and going to friends' houses and everything. And I was like, so when I went to so-and-so's house, like, she had a mom, and then she also has a dad. And then when I went to so-and-so's house, you know, she's got a mom and then she's got a dad. So like, it was like, and my mom already, like, when the first sentence that came out of my mouth, she knew what the conversation was about. And like, why don't I have a dad? She's like, you do have a dad, like, and this is your dad. So I used to call my dad by his name, Thomas. And Thomas is your dad. I'm like, what? And just couldn't believe it. So this is tying into one of the good things I always felt growing up. My parents had a very friendly relationship. They didn't have like this dramatic divorce, this dramatic separation. So it was like, whereas some of my friends whose parents went through a separation or a divorce as we were like growing up, I felt like their experience was much more traumatic because like their whole life was like shaken. Whereas it's always like been the norm for me to like grow up with my mom, and then every once in a while I'll go see my dad, my stepbrother. And so that was the good piece about the communication. But then this is like one piece where I wish that from the get-go, because like my stepbrother called our dad, and I just like, it was always Thomas for me. And like I made the conscious decision, like when I'm 17, 18 years old, okay, so he's my dad, I'm going to start calling him dad. And I remember the first time I called him dad, it felt weird, it felt awkward, it felt like, so that and again, this doesn't apply to, I realize like my story is very unique. I know that doesn't apply to everybody. In some instances it might be better if there's like no communication, or if the dad is like not involved at all, like if they're like whatever the circumstances are. But yeah, so in my situation, I really wish that I would have like, hey, and your dad's coming to visit, and so like that would have been normal too. I don't know. That's one thing that I wish would have been different, and not being 7 years old and finding out like, wow, this is my dad. And it was, yeah, still like very awkward. Yeah.
So you wish they broke the news sooner to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have a great relationship with both my parents. I have a good relationship with my mom, and I have a good relationship with my dad. And it's just, yeah, that little piece when I was growing up, that could have definitely been different.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. What, who did you dream of being when you were growing up? Did you knew who you were gonna be?
I love that question so much. So I wanted to be a teacher when I grew up. So some of that still fits the bill. I wanted to be like public school teacher. I went to school in Germany, and I wanted to be an English teacher because like my first English lesson, like I loved it. I was in 5th grade and this was awesome. And so I wanted to be an English teacher. Well, then I did a foreign exchange year in the United States. That's where I met my now husband. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to be a German teacher, like German as a foreign language. Perfect. And then I did my observation hours in college, and I was like, I actually do not want to be a teacher. Thank you very much. I didn't have kids at that point. I felt like I was awkward around younger kids. I didn't know like how to talk to them. And then I'm like, well, that's okay, because I'm going to be teaching foreign language, which is like a high school thing. So here I am doing my high school observation hours, and there's like these teenagers like I was, like very teenager, very rowdy, very not good girl. I'm like, I can't teach these people. Like what? And so I was like, I had like a semester where I was like, what am I going to do with my life? Like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. I thought I was going to be a teacher all my life. And so that's kind of at the same time when I was discovering fertility awareness, and I'm like, I can teach women who actually want to learn something. That's great. So that was kind of the shift there. Yeah.
That's amazing. What is your superpower if you had to pick one?
Ooh, that's a good question. I guess I'm going to tie it back into charting your menstrual cycle, that I'm able to look at a menstrual cycle chart and pinpoint some of the underlying issues that are likely going on. And then, working with these women through these issues, seeing the charts improve, and like they see that their charts are improving. And obviously, since the goal is conception, having that positive pregnancy test at the end. I've never been asked that. That's awesome.
That's good. What advice would you give to your younger self?
I honestly, so that, like I said, there were a lot of aspects that were good. Like, my mom did take time to spend with me, and so did my dad. I wish where this is going back into like what's different. Maybe I guess to ask, like I feel like communication is not good communication in general. So my mom and my dad did okay, but I feel like communication as in like expressing like your needs and things like that. So if I could have had a conversation with, like my dad, like, okay, so this is the first time I'm sharing this publicly. So like my dad's not on my birth certificate because otherwise he would have had to pay child support. My mom didn't want to nail him down, for something like that. So he's not on my birth certificate. So when I found out about that, I was actually very disappointed. And so it's been like this thing in my mind, like he's my dad, and like the fact that he's not on this paper doesn't change that. And so I wish I would have asked for that sooner. So like maybe that's the advice. I don't know why that was always such a big deal to me, and apparently it still is. Yeah. And one of the things to your earlier points, I was craving stability. And I was craving like that, the perfect family. There's a term in German, like I'm just going to say it if you have any listeners in Germany, heile Weltfamilie. So I can't really find a good word to translate it, but like the perfect family is like the best way I can say it. Like, like where there's a mom and a dad and like a kid or two or three or whatever. So that was like my scenario of the perfect family. And my aunt and uncle and cousins growing up, they had all that, right? So she was stay-at-home mom, and she would always fix everybody's breakfast, and she had lunch ready, and then they would all eat dinner together. And I loved going over there for meal times because like everybody sat there together. Or when I would spend the night when my mom was like going on a school trip or something like that, like she would come and gently wake me up in the morning. And like at home, I just had to set my alarm, fix my own breakfast, and like out the door we went, like late for the school bus, So that kind of stability is kind of what I craved growing up, that I felt like and my mom had to work, so I was like one of those what do they call it, those kids like where you put the key somewhere, door latch, door key, something like
key under the rug or something.
Yes, that's right, I was one of those kids.
So what were things that you loved about your childhood?
That I loved. My fondest childhood memories are largely with my dad, because he did stuff with us. Like my mom was older, so she always be like, careful, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do careful. And so my fondest memories are like doing stuff, like playing soccer with everybody in the backyard, or like going to the aquatic center, like the where they had like the fun park. So those were that's what I loved. It was like being active and like going and doing stuff, and my dad was usually the one doing that with us.
Awesome. And you said you were craving, what was it?
Stability.
Was there anything else? Was there anything missing that you wish you had other than stability?
That's a good one. So I mentioned before we start recording, like clearly I have issues. So a lot of the stuff is something that I could work through, or like there was some need to work through. I don't know, like that when I was thinking about it, that's kind of what stands out. Like I wanted like the regular. I guess the other thing would have been, and again, this was like my unique situation. I wish I would have had more regular times of like, every other weekend, like I go see my dad. So it was more sporadic. It was always an option. It just, sometimes like time gets away if you don't have it planned, if you don't have it on the calendar. So like when I was when I was a teenager, I just was able to go. I would take the bus to the train station and take the train and like text me like, hey, I'm gonna be there in an hour, like will you pick me up? But like when I was younger, it was obviously my mom having to drive, or let them having to come here. And then, so I also have a stepmom and two step siblings. And so where was I going with that? I guess just to share, like we were like a happy like patchwork family, but that the stability piece was very big for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I like to get a perspective, even though we have different stories, but sometimes certain culprits, certain things could help and, give
Mhm.
people ideas of what they can do better. Or I know I got to improve my communication.
Yeah. And I feel like that's difficult. Like I'm trying to like put myself, now that I'm an adult and I have kids of my own, trying to put myself into my mom's shoes. And like it, like their situation was so unique with the big age difference. And my mom was like, he's gonna find like a younger woman and like be happy. So like obviously my mom's got issues too in that regard. That she didn't feel deserving of having like this partnership or whatever. Dang it, I forgot my point again. But yeah.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. Is there anything I haven't asked that you'd like to share?
I don't think so. I think this is a great resource for single parents and parents. Like I think parents could do with a lot more communication. And yeah, you're giving them a great resource.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. If people would like to connect with you, learn more about you, where would they go?
I have a website, amyjovitamurray.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook at the same handle at amyjovitamurray, and I'd love to connect with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming, sharing your story, your wisdom, and we will include everything in episode notes. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. I think it is important, teaching adults, parents, as well as kids on fertility and the fact that they don't need to take pill for acne. There are so many other alternatives. And thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me, Irina.